Hey guys, I'm Hellhound, and my last video I did was my top 10 Super Nintendo games. SNES, my favorite console, and I mentioned my second favorite console is of course Sega Genesis, N64 being a close third, by the way. And so I figured to make a video about Sega Genesis console. Oh yeah, it's my second favorite for good reason. And it had a lot of the same games. For this one, an SNES. And usually, I gotta admit, the Super Nintendo version was superior. However, sometimes I like the music a little better in the Sega Genesis. It was a little more limited sound. The thing about the Genesis was, in order to have better graphics and do all these things in order to compete with the Super Nintendo, you had to buy different different add-ons that you would hook to it. And the Super Nintendo, you didn't need to do any of that because it already had all that. The technology to do that already. But, I still have lots of fun playing Genesis, and sometimes I'm more in the mood for that than Super Nintendo. And here's another one I have. I actually have like 5 different Genesis consoles. I also have a Gen X, which is a Genesis with NES, which is pretty cool. And I have another Genesis with a bunch of games built in. So I actually didn't bother getting some of the games that I really wanted for the Genesis because they're already built into this one. It's kind of crappy because the controllers are wireless and sometimes they don't always register very well. Then I have yet another console. Unfortunately, none of them work with my flat screen TV, which I'm still trying to figure out. But I've just been using that one that I said has the built-in games for now. So someday I'll figure it out. I sold my TV that I was using at my apartment, so I can't use that one anymore. I'll just maybe get a new older TV just to play my Genesis games, but it's fine for now. I use that newer one. But anyway, let's get right down to it. My top 10 Genesis games with some honorable mentions thrown in. Now, there are a lot of great games. I'm going to try to avoid ones that are also available for Super Nintendo and ones that are exclusive for Genesis, but I will include a few in there in which I think that the Genesis version is superior. Usually, sometimes only the music was different, like in the case of like Pac-Man 2 or what's another example? Rock and Roll Racing was just the sound that was different. But there's some games that are completely different altogether, like RoboCop versus Terminator and a few others. So yeah, let's get right down to it. Number 10, probably Eco the Dolphin. Now, this is actually a pretty hard game. But lots of times it's actually kind of relaxing. Like it's really soothing. It plays this really melodic, calming music during most of the stages, and you just kind of swim around freely. And cool. I love the ocean. I've always been obsessed with the sea and marine life, and this game really lets you kind of control that. Have an adventure in that world. So I think that's pretty cool. Aquatic adventure. Playing as a dolphin, obviously. Pretty fun game. Very challenging. There's some parts that are very difficult, but I have managed to beat it a few times. I used to play this a lot when I was young. It was one of the first Genesis games I ever played, if I'm not mistaken, not counting like Sonic and other obvious things. Sonic and like Vector Man are probably the first ones, but this is like one of the first ones I played that wasn't like a name brand, really obvious choice. There's also a sequel, Eco: The Tides of Time. Another pretty good. I think they had another one as well. I forget what it's called. I think there was like Eco Junior or something. I don't even know. But yeah, Eco the Dolphin. The games are pretty fun. Definitely check it out if you have a Genesis. And as I said, my favorite part is just kind of exploring the ocean. Solving the puzzles is fun too. There's always a good challenge there. But I just love swimming around freely and listening to that calming music. It's really, it's really moving. I really like that. Number 9, Splatterhouse 2. Now, I love the Splatterhouse games. They're straight up horror inspired, so a horror fan like me is definitely going to dig them. And you play as a character named Rick, who kind of looks more like Jason in the actual game. His mask looks like a hockey mask. I think it pretty much was in the first game. The mask takes him over, and it gives him all these powers. He's trying to save his girlfriend from this. The evil spirits in the house. You can see right there it kind of looks like a xenomorph from the Alien movies. Pretty cool games. Pretty gory for their time. I think they're pretty groundbreaking, pretty revolutionary. There's Splatterhouse 3 as well, which I used to have, but I let somebody borrow it and then never gave it back. But yeah, I love the Splatterhouse games. Splatterhouse 2 is probably my favorite. Number 8, I already mentioned RoboCop versus Terminator. This one's also available for Super Nintendo, but it's way different. It's a great idea for a crossover. Obviously, it's probably the two of the biggest franchises of all time, featuring sentient machines. And I think that actually be cool if they did make like a maybe not a movie that's actual canonical and part of the series continuity, maybe like an animated movie that's like non-canon with the rest, where like an evil Terminator comes back in time, and the RoboCop is like the protector. He's like the good guy. He's the soldier, has to protect whoever the Terminator's target is. I think that'd be pretty cool. RoboCop's the good guy, Terminator's the bad guy. It'll probably never happen, but hey, we have the game. Pretty fun. Pretty difficult. It's fun controlling RoboCop. I also have the RoboCop 1, 2, and 3 games for NES, and this is just way better. He has way more things he can do. Check it out. Now, number 7, I believe. What are we on 7? Booger Man. Now, yeah, this is one that's also available for Super Nintendo, and they're really not that much different, other than the sound effects are a little different. Probably superior on the Nintendo version, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Great game. I actually mentioned this as an honorable mention in my Super Nintendo video, but it's hilarious. It's got a lot of humor, and they never made a sequel. We didn't see the Booger Man character again until Clay Fighter 63 and a third, and also the Sculptor's Cut, which were both on N64. But yeah, Interplay made some great games back in the day. This is definitely one of the better ones. Speaking of Interplay, they also did, or actually maybe not, I might be mistaken. But anyway, my next one's Earthworm Jim. It's a great game. This is another one I mentioned in my Super Nintendo video. I think it's an honorable mention. Yeah, this was Earthworm Jim 2. Both great games, both pretty difficult, especially towards the end. You only have to use your head. And of course, it spawned the excellent cartoon series from the 90s I used to watch a lot, and it seems like nobody remembers. There's also an Earthworm Jim 3D for the N64. I didn't like that one quite as much, but I used to play those other two for hours. I had all kinds of fun, and I always played the Genesis version. I think I might have rented the Super Nintendo version one time, like back in the day, when you could actually rent games like that from the store. That was pretty cool. Video stores had video games. When video stores still existed, what am I talking about? There's actually one in my town that's shutting down, like, next week, of course. But I'm glad I made it this long. Not that they had anything good. But, yeah, Earthworm Jim. Great game. Next, and I mentioned this one on my Super Nintendo as well, video as well, Battletoads. I also have this for the NES, and I kind of prefer that version because it has the opening cutscene with the storyline. I love the intermission theme, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This is so awesome. I think the Evil Queen, or the Dark Queen, whatever, looks even more badass in the NES version too. But of course, this Genesis version has way better graphics, and I think a few additional elements they added too. But they did take out the opening cutscene, which I don't care for. But yeah, the music does sound better in this one. Love Battletoads, and I mentioned their other games in my Super Nintendo video. Huge Battletoads fan. I'd like to see them make some kind of a comeback, because they're kind of like a rip-off of the Ninja Turtles, but I think the Battletoads games might have been even better than the Ninja Turtle games, except for maybe Turtles in Time. It's a close one. I don't know about that one, but yeah, Battletoads is awesome. Next would be Comic Zone, and this is a pretty cool game. It's not really too difficult, but it's pretty cool because a comic book illustrator gets sucked into his own comics, and he's fighting like all these monsters and super villains and all these super powered characters, and it it plays like you're actually inside of a comic. You see the panels, like he goes from panel to panel. You even see the lines in the middle. Pretty cool. Even the dialogue looks like what do they call it? Like a speech box. Yeah, pretty cool. They should make a movie like that. Some guy gets sucked into a comic book and fights his way through his own creations and stuff. They probably have somewhere, but it might have sucked. But this game's awesome. It's a little too short though. I kind of wish it was longer. If this cartridge doesn't play very well anymore, I have to blow in it like 50 times, and even then it's kind of cuts off mid-play a lot. So I really need to get a new one of these. But it's built into that, as I said, that Sega Genesis retro console. It's the flashback throwback console that has all the game built in. So there's that. Next, I don't think there's any doubt this is going to be on the list. Vector Man, great game. Pretty hard. Basically, it's like a post-apocalyptic wasteland of the future. And there's robots have like taken over. They're the dominant species while humans are like on another planet and the robots are cleaning up. But I think one of them tries to take over and Vector Man has to stop him. I don't really remember the storyline, but the gameplay is great. Very fun. They should have made this into a movie as well. There was also a sequel, Vector Man 2, and I don't think they ever made any other Vector Man games other than these two, but they're both pretty fun, especially the first one. Definitely a staple for, I think everybody who had a Genesis owned those games, or at least played them. Yeah, Vector Man is just freaking awesome. I love it. And so, what else we got? Okay. Well, these were going to be on the list, obviously, and I couldn't really pick just one, so I figured I'd just include them all. The Sonic games. It's a Sega Genesis video. Sonic the Hedgehog had to be on here somewhere. Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Sonic and Knuckles, that cool little top loader thing. You can put another game in there and play as Knuckles. Pretty cool feature. Then there's like Spinball, spin-offs, like Sonic Spinball, and then Mr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine or something. I don't know. I don't think I have that game anymore. I know I did it one time. Who knows what happened to it? But yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog's pretty much what Mario is for Nintendo. Sonic is for Sega. He's kind of a mascot. He's the most well-known character. The Sonic games are a lot of fun. If I had to pick a favorite, a real true number 9 on my list, probably be Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I didn't want to have them all take up slots because pretty much my whole top 10 list would just be full of Sonic games. I tried to include like one game per series. But yeah, they're really cool. They're really fun. I'm sure you probably already know that if you're watching my video. I think everybody loves Sonic. And some of the more, and I really like the ones for the Dreamcast as well, like Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventures 2 or whatever. My Dreamcast actually stopped working; it stopped reading discs, so I sold most of my games except for Sonic Adventure. It's actually the only one I have. Hopefully, I'll get it fixed soon. I took it apart. I tried to readjust it, the laser and everything. I thought I fixed it, and it did work briefly, but then it just stopped working again, and I just got to buy a new one someday. I thought the Dreamcast was a pretty cool system. It didn't have very many games. It didn't last long, but I thought it was underrated. It was, it was pretty cool. I think it was, I guess it competed with, I guess it competed more with the GameCube than the N64, and like PlayStation 2, I guess. Maybe it came out a little bit before that, but I thought it was a pretty cool system. Every company has like that one console that didn't last very long. Of course, there's also the Sega Saturn and stuff. Nintendo had GameCube, which I actually thought was pretty cool too. I'd rather play that than a Wii, honestly. I mean, come on, Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, Pikmin. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Time for some honorable mentions. First games that I don't have anymore. Golden Axe, which really almost made my top 10. I mean, it was in and out of the list the whole time I was making it. Altered Beast, another one that probably belongs in my top 10, might even be number 11, but I found myself playing the other ones a little more. Ristar, that game with that, you control that little star, It's kind of like Sonic, but you play as a star. Streets of Rage, great game. That probably should have been in my top 10 as well. I'm sure most people, if they made a top, Sega Genesis games list, Streets of Rage would probably be in it. Also, Castlevania Bloodlines. Love the Castlevania games, and Bloodlines is definitely a great entry. Rocket Knight Adventures, which I thought was kind of like a Sonic ripoff, but I think it really came into its own. Actually, it might have started out inspired by Sonic, but it's pretty awesome on its own. It's definitely its own game. It's not too similar. Also, Kid Chameleon. I thought that was really fun. I used to play that a lot. And I used to have all those games, but I don't anymore. Now, as for some ones I do have, honorable mentions. Rock and Roll Racing, which the Super Nintendo version's probably superior because when the announcer talks, it doesn't interrupt the awesome songs. It's got Paranoid and Radar Love and Bad to the Bone and awesome rock and roll tunes. It's all set in space in the future, and you race. They should make this into a movie as well. I know I've said a lot of games on this list, but that really does have a pretty cool premise and some awesome characters like Snake or Jake. I think his name's Jake. Oh yeah, that's cool stuff. Cool aliens and stuff. Street Fighter 2, there's so many different versions. This one's the Special Championship Edition. God, there's there's more versions of this game than there is friggin' James Bond movies. Yeah, it's just crazy. The one game too, Street Fighter 2, not just they didn't make a bunch of different games. They just made it's all Street Fighter 2, some kind of edition, so some kind of version. But yeah, I'm just saying Street Fighter 2. Yeah, it's a great game. Definitely belongs in any Genesis library. Beavis and Butthead, that's an honorable mention, but I will say the Super Nintendo version is probably superior. This one's really frustrating. They made way too many obstacles. It's still pretty fun, and it does kind of feel like you're playing like an actual episode of the cartoon, which I loved. It was just the shit in the 90s. Beavis and Butthead were awesome. They made a temporary comeback more recently, but then what happened after that? They just disappeared. I thought it was going to keep going. So they need to come back yet again. It was like they never left. Love Beavis and Butthead. Someday I'll have to review the show and Beavis and Butthead Do America, the movie. Also, I'm a huge Pac-Man fan, so I had to include some of the Pac-Man games in my honorable mentions. We got Miss Pac-Man, the Genesis remake, and Pac-Mania, which is kind of like an updated version. The arcade game, which I used to play when I was younger, is way superior to this port, but it's still pretty cool. It's cool because you could jump over the ghosts, and there's more ghosts this time, but definitely more levels, and the mazes changed, so it's pretty cool. Also, Eternal Champions, pretty fun game. Biohazard Battle. This one doesn't seem like much. There's not much going on, but it's very addicting. Like, when you play it, you'll find yourself wanting to play it more and more. Clay Fighter, which I talked about on my Super Nintendo list. I have all the Clay Fighter games. Yeah, I have all three of the Super Nintendo ones and both of the N64 ones. I love this. It's a great series. I love the characters. It's so much fun. It's probably not the best fighting game, obviously, like Mortal Kombat or Killer Instinct or Street Fighter, but still a lot of fun. And as I say, creative characters, kind of more of a parody, more of a spoof of fighting games. Also, X-Men, can't go wrong with that. X-Men 2 is way better than this one, but I don't own it anymore. I think I'll let somebody borrow it, and you know the rest. You know how that story goes. Shadow Blasters, actually, I don't remember putting this in my stack. I guess it got in there accidentally, but whatever, it's a fun game. At least what I remember. Primal Rage, the arcade version is definitely better, and the most superior port of the game is actually probably the PlayStation version. This one, definitely has downgraded graphics and sound quality, but yeah, it's still pretty cool. Not bad. I wish they would have made more games. They were supposed to make a part 2, but never happened. I think even a movie was in the works at one point, but whatever. Playing as dinosaurs and apes, making their return from the Jurassic era or Mesozoic, whatever. They came back and started dominating the Earth. It's a pretty cool premise for a fighting game for sure, but that's not the best port though. Whatever. I have a PlayStation 2, but this isn't a PlayStation video, so I'd include it. And my number one choice, my number one Sega Genesis game, and you probably already figured it out, maybe not, Toe Jam and Earl. Now, this game's so simple, but it's so friggin' addicting. Basically, these two funky aliens who love rap music and, are all about, being hip and cool, and they're just funk masters. They're just pulsating with everything that was cool in the 90s. They crash land on Earth, and they have to go collect their ship parts to rebuild their ship and go back to their planet, Funkatron. And on the way, there's all kinds of pesky Earthlings, weird things like a psychotic dentist, a lady is pushing her kid in a cart. We deal with that in real life. Boogeymen who are like invisible. I don't know what kind of Earth this is. It looks like it was destroyed because it's actually just platforms of land just floating in the middle of space. It doesn't really look like Earth. There's also phantom ice cream trucks, these little devils, bees that follow you around, a herd of nerds that chase you. I don't know. I guess they're aliens, so the nerds are wanting to chase them. I don't know. Maybe they think they're from Star Trek or something. Who knows? Also chickens that shoot tomatoes at you. And you can get presents that give you power-ups. It's like super high tops, so you can run really fast, or tomatoes that you can throw, all kinds of crazy stuff. My favorite being the Icarus wings, which lets you fly. I usually always pick Toe Jam, and usually my buddy Shadow comes over and he uses Earl. Toe Jam moves faster, and Earl has a longer life bar. But yeah, they should have made this into a cartoon, because it really had potential. And they're actually making a new game, I hear, that's going to be even closer to this one. Because there was a sequel, Toe Jam and Earl Panic on Funkatron. Now, this one's a side-scroller. It's not like, in the first game, you moved all around. It was kind of almost like a 3D thing. Well, not 3D, but like, it was like an aerial view. It was like a map screen. This one, yeah, is a 2D side-scroller. This one has a little more to it. It actually takes place on Funkatron. Turns out when they returned, they brought a bunch of Earthlings with them, and the Earthlings are just pests. They take pictures of the aliens, and they sing, and they're just they're just a nuisance. Even the Boogeymen returned from the first game. Yeah, this one's a lot of fun too. I kind of prefer the first game. I find it a little more addicting, which it definitely is. It has bulk, loads of replay value, despite being so simple and kind of repetitive. But yeah, this one's also a lot of fun. And they also have to find the Funk, which is like some kind of alien creature which hid, and like it's causing Funkatron to turn black and white because it's losing the Funk, and all the aliens are worried about it. But my favorite thing about it is talking to the other alien characters. In this one, you do collect presents, but I think they just kind of give you like Funk-O-Vision, I think it is, and like the ability to like teleport through walls and stuff, all kinds of things. Yeah, I love talking to their alien characters. It's always fun. They definitely should have made it into a cartoon. They did have a part 3 for like Xbox. It was a disaster. I can't even. I tried to play it. It was terrible. Which is I'm not an Xbox fan, as you probably already know. They really ruined Banjo-Kazooie as well. Of course, Rareware isn't any good anymore. Microsoft just makes everything soulless. Unless it's a first-person shooter, Xbox pretty much sucks, at least in my opinion. No offense to Xbox fans, but these games are freaking awesome, and they're planning on making another one that's going to be a return to form. It's going to be more like this game, and I'm really excited. I think it's going to be available for like mobile phones. If you have an iPhone or Android or whatever, you'll be able to play it on your phone, which is friggin' awesome. I'm excited for that. I'll definitely be downloading that because I'm a huge Toe Jam and Earl fan. It is my favorite Sega Genesis game. That's my list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Long live retro games, and I think I'm going to go play me some Sega Genesis. I'm going to hook this to the old TV downstairs. I'm going to go in the basement and see if it works on that TV, because, damn it, I want to play an actual console, not the new thing, even though it is convenient. Alright guys, well, I'm Hellhound, and long live retro gaming. Sega needs to make a comeback. I guess they've been bought out by Nintendo, who now owns Sonic and all those characters. But, it'd be so awesome if they made another console, because now all we have is Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. But anyway, alright guys, until next time.